Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. We'd like to welcome you to our first webinar of our new MOps Unlocked series around data quality. So just to give you a quick introduction to CRMT Digital and to our MOps Unlocked series, we're a marketing operational consultancy where we have experts that solve challenges across people, processes, data and technology. So for the MOps Unlocked series, we'll aim to look at a variety of marketing operational challenges that you or your team may be facing. If you have any suggestions, by the way, please do let us know. And we'll discuss how to resolve them so that after the webinar, you have some concrete steps that you can take away to help you manage your database and keep it clean, which is basically what we all want. So keep an eye out for future sessions that we'll also be scheduling. So for today's session, we'll be going through why data quality is important, focusing on the B2B side and what to look out for to improve data quality. By the way, if anyone is keeping count, we'll be saying data quality a lot this session. So this webinar is suitable for everyone. You may be joining as someone who works with data day to day or just needs some help with sorting out your data. Or you may be managing a team where you want to do all these fantastic marketing and sales initiatives, but your data is just not good enough. So here we are. So in this session, you'll have me, Lisa. I'm a MarTech specialist at CRMT, and I've worked with both agency and in-house for about 5 to 6 years, so I can provide insight from both perspectives. Similarly, we've also got Kamilla with me here today, who I'd like to introduce, who's our marketing ops consultant.
Thank you, Lisa. Hi, everyone. Like Lisa said, I'm a MOps consultant at CRMT. I've got some good experience in data quality improvements, both in-house and agency side. And what I've learned and seen along the way is that data quality is one of the most important elements that underpin any marketing campaign and inbound and outbound strategies. So I'm really excited to discuss this. Some may say dry, but we say exciting topic today.
So we have a lot of topics to cover in today's short session, so I'll just run you through what we'll cover today. So firstly, we'll look at the importance of data quality, then we'll follow up with how you can monitor data health. After that, we'll discuss how you can correct existing and future data along with some examples based on mine and Camilla's experience. We'll also discuss and talk about data enrichment, as this remains vital for data quality, and then at the end we'll give a suggestion on how to create a plan of action, which will hopefully give you a way to start with improving your data. We'll then also have time at the end to discuss any questions. So to start off with, you may be wondering, why did we actually choose to discuss data quality? Well, we find it remains highly relevant with the clients we work with and in the market as a whole, especially with some cutting-edge technology solutions around AI and machine learning. As I'm sure you'll know, these are hot topics in today's marketing. And some fantastic stuff is created in today's market. However, the point stands that if your data is poor, then it actually does more damage than good, because you won't have that basis to start from.
It's so true, and the cost of bad data is hugely underestimated. So businesses need to make sure that they're regularly cleaning and maintaining their data. We know that this isn't news to any of you, but targeting, segmentation, and reporting is so very challenging if data quality is poor. And taking advantage of those new technologies, in fact, any technology, is also very challenging if the data is not straight.
Yeah, that's right. So I have an example from a client I worked with a while back. So they reached out to us and they had quite poor data quality. And one of the reasons was because the platforms they were holding information in were really siloed and they weren't integrated at all, which in the end actually meant they were sending prospect emails, such as free trial emails, to customers, as they didn't know who their customers even were, which, let's face it, is embarrassing for everyone.
It's such a classic example, and it happens everywhere as well. And it really highlights that stakes across the high if data quality is not good. Which brings me on to why data quality is so important. Very nice segue. It allows for better decision making and improved decision making and improved and increased scalability of processes. And it also helps you boost productivity. If data quality is high, it's likely that many manual processes can be automated. Another key reason for you to have high data quality is to make sure that your data is compliant. Unorganized and incorrect data carries a high risk of compliance, especially in GDPR, as you need a clear audit trail. So generally, good data quality allows for improved targeting, conversions, and better reporting. So in your example, Lisa, sending the wrong comms to the wrong audience doesn't happen, as it really doesn't look great when you get the basics wrong.
Yeah, I think it's also important to clean your database regularly, because marketing automation and CRM platforms sometimes actually charge on how many records you have in the database. So you're basically saving budget to cleanse. But this, of course, depends on what platform you're using.
So, Lisa, do you have some recommendations on how to improve data quality?
Yeah, so I'd suggest 3 areas to start focusing on. So at the beginning, create a dashboard or a set of lists, reports that show the health of your database, and then you can easily identify issues and things to correct quickly. Then from there, look at processes that can be implemented to correct routine issues, such as making sure mandatory fields are populated in forms, imports, and things like that. Look at all the ways that data can enter your system. Finally, you may not be able to automate everything. So by reviewing the dashboard that you created and the database itself, that's a good way of monitoring and acting on poor data. So for example, like spam records coming through, so basically having rubbish in like the first, last company name or like email address. So by having these lists in place allows you to be able to make records unavailable or remove them manually if they're seen as spam.
I love this database health board dashboard. It's something I wish I had when we worked in house, and I now suggest it to all of our clients as well. We'll look at an example in a bit. I just want to highlight a few key data points to flag in the dashboard itself so that you can be proactive with your database health. Because trust me when I say, if you leave it too long, then it is a lot harder to fix. So we suggest you monitor the volume of your database, so number of records, objects, fields, that kind of thing. This helps you understand if, when, and what to cut if you do need to. And depending on which CRM platform you use and on your integrations, duplicate management can be quite complex. But one way or another, you're going to have to keep it under control. So having a trial on your dashboard really helps with this. You should also look at the completeness of your data, population levels of key fields in your database. This is the key to data health. Like, where is my data thin? And it can also help you build and develop your enrichment strategy, which we'll talk a little bit more about later today. And again, I know we know this already, but keep an eye on your marketable records. Are marketable levels going up? Great, that means your audience is slowing. Are marketable levels going down, but your database number is going up? Find out who loaded that massive list of unavailable records and shout at them, okay? You should also look at your marketable records alongside your deliverability. Recency is also good to look at. When was this record last active, and when did we last reach out to them? And then one of the big ones, consent, opt-in, opt-out, double opt-in, all of it. You need to keep an eye on this and stay on top of it for legal reasons. And this is not just in Europe. There are laws in Canada, parts of the United States too, and policy in APAC is moving towards the European GDPR legal framework. If a data access request comes through of any kind, it is critical that you have the fields in order and you have a clear audit trail. Very, very important, guys. And lastly, use the database health dashboard to monitor trends so you can jump on something as soon as you see it going the wrong way. Be proactive. So next, we've got an example of a database health dashboard, so showing total records, mailability, and recency of engagement. You can see the total count of records and the mailable records and the reason they're not mailable. And you can also see the recency of contact and engagement with your organisation. So this really helps with campaign segmentation and also understanding whether there are records that could be cleansed or enriched. Looking at the engagement within your database isn't just important, from a data health perspective. Yes, you may need to action the data to ensure that you are legally compliant, for example, but you can also use it to identify when a re-engagement campaign is needed.
I find that people that are proactive around their data have the best data quality. It's kind of like, I don't know if it's just me, but if you're really spending time tidying your home, the work just feels up and up to the extent it will actually take more time in the end to sort out compared to if you just been doing it stuff. Yeah. So it's kind of like that. If you spend a small amount of time each day trying to review and clean up, it will be much easier in the long term. So I'd just like to run through some steps that can be used as a guide to help with poor data quality based on the projects that we worked on. So first of all, data standardization. It's a long word, but it's basically organising and formatting the data in a way so then segmentation is much easier. So ways that this can work is ensure relevant fields like country, territory, revenue, and number of employees are set as drop-downs. That way they can be selected instead of inputted, which basically prevents errors. The amount of times we've seen country fields with all the different inputs when there's no drop-down, such as UK, UKI, United Kingdom, and then lots of variations with misspellings as well. So then if you have this, that's very difficult to segment. It's also important to use an import template, so this will be your holy grail. At least it was for me when I was working in-house. So then you can ensure key values and correct fields are being updated and ensuring consistent formatting of data. Also, making sure fields are not duplicated in the system in different ways, as that just gets confusing if there are out-of-date fields, or which fields to use if the names are similar. Make you and your team's life easier and streamline the fields you need in the system. Also, something I'd recommend, which I've done in the past for some clients, is create data dictionaries, where you literally write down what each field is being used for and why it exists, which I find really helpful, and you can share that with your team as well. Then there's data validation, where rules can be set for manual record creation, so that certain fields are not missed or have incorrect formatting. This basically makes sure that if someone tries to create records and don't know what they're doing, you're preventing bad data coming through. Also, another thing that can be set is adding recapture and forms to stop junk data coming through. So this isn't where you have to select all the fire engines that you see. This is just a checkbox showing that you're human. That way you can prevent records coming through to avoid having to handle them later on. However, a side note here is that bots are smart and are getting smarter, so unfortunately this is not foolproof. Another process that you can add is looking at third-party platforms. They basically scan data before importing, so then that way you can check the data is valid before importing. I found Never Bounce to be quite helpful. They basically scan for hard bounces, out-of-date data, for example, but there are many platforms out there which do basically similar things, so you do have options. Moving on to the integration and sync side of things, if your marketing automation or CRM platforms are integrated, make sure you check the field sync settings, as sometimes one platform can overwrite the other if it's master. So check that the data is updated in the correct system when you're making changes. Otherwise, what you can end up with is making changes and then it just gets overwritten again, which is not what we want. So just to highlight, this is particularly important when dealing with personally identifiable data, and it's important to have a clear audit trail and one system of truth to reference. Another thing is if you have siloed platforms that contain the same records with more information, then integrating them would make sense to give you an overall picture. So if you're working as maybe a marketing exec or potentially, your manager asks you to show all the activity on a record or company, then you don't need to look at lots of platforms to basically give the story. Equally, if you're managing a team, you can easily look at it yourself, or your team should be able to give you the reporting that's needed and quite quickly. Which basically, in the end, makes everyone's lives easier. I've also touched on this briefly, but automating processes helps correct data, such as records that haven't been active in a certain time period. You could automatically remove them from your sending lists, which could be valuable and can increase your campaign performance.
A client once referred to those unengaged records as emotional non-subscribes, which for me was a blast from the past. But again, it's accurate. But it made me chuckle. Some of the things that we can think about is setting up data normalization rules, such as like a contact washing machine, which based on certain imports, an automation rule concatenates and adjusts and then performs lookups to certain fields. An example could be ensuring capitalization in, for example, first and last name. You can also calculate job function and level based on certain values in the job title field, which can make life easier when you're segmenting and targeting or building your personas. There are many ways to do this type of normalization. We can either set it up in your marketing automation platform, which can be a bit of a manual process, or you can use a normalization tool like Normalator. Data duplication is really important to make sure your data is clean. This is one of my passion projects, sadly. The first thing you need to do is define what a duplicate is. This depends on your organization. A common approach to this is to identify dupes based on email address. You can add to the DDoS prevention rules by having fuzzy matching rules as well, for example, on first and last name. These can then be either manually reviewed, or you can set up detection and prevention workflows in your marketing automation or CRM system to manage it for you. You may also want to scope out your use cases for legitimate duplicates. We do work with some clients who, due to sales process, require a new lead every time someone MQLs, which is a legitimate use case for dupes for them. Or you can have partner records who are also users, meaning they exist in your system twice, but are categorized differently and therefore need to be marketed to differently. For example, a partner record can receive marketing material, but the user cannot because they're unsubscribed. That is a valid use case for duplicates, but be aware though that this type of practice can and probably will impact your reporting. So make sure you speak to your analytics teams and take this into account when you're reporting. Lastly, lead to account matching allows you to roll the lead level information up to the account level, which is really valuable for ABM campaigns, but it's also really good for rolling the account level information to identify prospects who are already customers and treat them accordingly. For example, as a new business opportunity in a franchise model, or a user looking for support. So company and domain matching is useful here too, so that correct record is associated with a relevant company when it comes in. This also helps when there is data missing on either the lead or account level, and it helps filter the data across objects, which really helps unlock the value of your data.
So there's just one last approach that I would say is key in ensuring your database is up to date, and that is data enrichment. So if you're not familiar with these platforms, they basically hold a large volume of data that can help populate your existing data based on domain or company name. So this can help add in missing data points or information needed to help identify your ideal customer profile, for example. And if you don't want to ask for data points in forms, this can help, such as using it for company revenue or something like that. There are a lot of data enrichment providers out there. Scott Brinker's tech stack, there is a section for data enrichment, and I was quite overwhelmed actually. But I'm sure we know a few, like ZoomInfo and 6sense. and they do roughly similar things, but the way they obtain the information and the coverage across the globe differs. And don't forget, GDPR compliance is key here to ensure data is obtained legally and has the correct consent. So do your research here, as in the end, it is your responsibility to make sure people have given consent.
And remember that data enrichment also needs normalization rules, as the format that the provider uses may not be the same as what you have in your CRM marketing automation system. An example of that could be, the provider giving you a 6-digit stick industry value, but you're actually using the string industry value in your systems. So make sure that you're incorporating the standardization and normalization models when you're enriching too.
So that was a lot of information around data quality and ways to improve data quality. Has anyone kept score on how many times we said data quality?
I think it must be at least 100.
Yeah. So now what? How can you take what we've said and make a plan? So the way I would personally approach for data quality in your database is to make a list of short and long-term actions. Give yourself a roadmap to work towards, as let's face it, you can't do everything at once, and unlock the value as you move along your journey. So the first thing around short-term actions, so the data points can vary, but as we mentioned, put together a dashboard on the main issues you're facing that can be monitored. That way you can spot issues quickly. Then standardise your fields and values. This might not always be in your control, but work with the marketing, automation, CRM admin and team to streamline this. At the end of the day, people will appreciate you trying to make people's day-to-day lives easier. I know I would. Put together an import template that is used within the marketing and sales teams and anyone else that's importing data. Also, give it to your marketing campaigns teams so that they understand what data you need. So basically, you're not just given a spreadsheet of data for you to import with half the values missing. Like we mentioned, it's a team effort. So then you can include validation rules on the fields you included. Again, work with the people that are admins if that's not you. Then add normalization rules that you may be correcting manually at the moment, and work with your teams to see if anyone else is having to manually correct errors that you can help resolve. Then, in terms of the long-term actions, you can be looking at data enrichment approaches, understanding which fields are required, marketing and sales teams, so that the fields don't need to be added on forms. And as I mentioned, do your homework on these providers. Another thing is then you can review duplicate management. As discussed, there are legitimate duplicates and there are rules to consider to merge certain records, but then there are records that might sit out of those rules. Figure out what they are and see how they fit in. Look at integrating platforms together. So if you have integrated, if you already have marketing automation and CRM platforms integrated, it might be valuable integrating an ERP system, that holds your contract information. Likewise, if you have e-commerce platform, for example, like Magento, ensuring that that's integrated so that in that way you can see transactional data, that's quite valuable because then you can see in one platform the whole story instead of switching to other platforms, which basically makes it more fragmented. Also looking at automating processes for the long term that are repetitive, such as reviewing engagement recency to include all suppressed records from email sends and perhaps removing them from the database as a whole. So last but not least, alignment across the team is also important and maybe part of your long-term roadmap, as this may take time to ensure that marketing, sales, IT teams are all on the same page on how the data is updated, the type of data that should be captured, and the overall data strategy. documentation is also key here to ensure that these processes are followed by everyone. So hopefully that gives you a good overview of how poor data quality can be improved. So I think we'd now like to just move on to our second part of the session to discuss questions around data quality. So we'll just go through some of these now. Okay, let's have a look. So, first question, who is typically responsible for upholding data quality? Do you want to take that one, Kamilla?
Yeah, sure. I think it's important, and we try to highlight this throughout the session as well, that anyone that works with data is responsible for upholding the quality of it, all the way from senior leadership teams to the team working, hands on with the data. It is the most valuable assets for a business, so it needs to be high priority for each team. But one of the ways that we've helped our clients is to support the teams to work with, IT, other ops teams, any other team that works with data to come up with a unified approach that everyone is aligned. Do you want to add anything, Lisa?
Yeah, it just means that basically everyone is responsible, and basically having a data strategy in place is very important.
Yeah, agreed. Right, so another question is, what can we do if we're only responsible for the marketing automation platform and not the CRM platform where the data is synced from? So I think the teams need to work together to align on the data strategy here. Like I mentioned before, it's not just one person or team's responsibility. A good place to start, though, could be to start that data dictionary that Lisa mentioned and agree on who owns what fields. Sales might be like, well, the phone number's ours, and marketing is probably going to be like, we want the email because that's how we do our business. And then basically go down the list and agree, which fields can be updated by which systems. Look at things like read and write privileges in the different fields and other sync users, and basically work together to create a complete outline. I don't know whether you want to add anything, Lisa.
Yeah, so also make sure that they are using the same import templates. I keep banging about that, but it's important. And have an aligned approach on standardization, normalization, and the duplicate management so that we have the good data quality. So like you say, in essence, work closely with the sales ops teams and any other team that works with the data.
Yeah.
So got another question. So how can we enrich data and stay GDPR compliant? So company level data is a good example where I think data enrichment can play a big role. So that then that way you don't need to put as many fields on the forms, but then in your database still have that good data population for the data points that you need. However, we're not updating personally identifiable data, so that's just an important note there.
Yeah, definitely don't update PII data. Just don't do
it. Looks like you have another GDPR question. So this is quite a long one. Companies always struggle with data upload processes to ensure it goes in clean, GDPR is followed, but at the same time, there is a need to load it in fast as leads get cold quick. Do you have any recommendations on how to handle that? So I keep going on about it, but import template is key here. So ensure that you have the relevant consent fields to stay GDPR compliant, and having one or a few people responsible for data uploads. That way, to make sure it goes smoothly. That's what I recommend anyway. As mentioned, Never Bounce is a good tool to check data is up to date. And then that way, it helps you upload the data quickly as well. So you've got the imports template, so you know what you're doing in terms of like the fields that you need, and then you've got the, like for example, Never Bounce to then scan the data that you're uploading quite quickly, and then you can just remove the records that you don't want to upload. And then with those two things, you should be able to upload it quite quickly. That's what I've done anyway. So
Yeah, I'd like to add just, set some realistic SLAs between the team who loads the data and the team who receives it. And make sure, like Lisa said, make sure that you have your templates and basically creating a process for this. And then make sure that you set your prospect expectations as well, if that's necessary. If they go to an event or something, you can let them know that you'll be in touch in a week or two or whatever aligns with your SLAs, and then everyone's on the same page and no one's like yapping down the hall and being like, where is my data? And that kind of stuff. We don't want to get into that.
No. Also, I know I've said this already, but send the import template to the marketing campaign scheme, because I find that really helps too.
Yeah. Right. So next question: do you have any client examples that were particularly impressive in regards to data quality? Now, Lisa and I are not competitive at all, so I reckon we're going to be have an example each here.
I'll have a look at the end to see which one best.
One of my clients originally had a really long list of fields on their forms that were all required. So we worked with them on normalization and data enrichment strategies and configurations, and we managed to reduce the fields on their forms to just 3, which I think is pretty impressive. What have you got, Lisa? What do you think?
No, I agree that's impressive. I've seen so many forms with like a million fields. So we also had a client that had so many lists in place with filters to capture typical spam terms such as first name, including test or QWERTY or whatever. But also, most interestingly, we worked on a project that allowed them to capture symbols. So this was just because the particular client wasn't able to market to countries that use an alphabet with symbols. So how we did this is to check if first, last, company name did not contain any of A, B, C, D, and so on, for example. It seemed really simple, but marketing automation tools don't actually seem to have like an exclude symbols setting. So this really helps with cleansing their database and to remove these records. Wonder who wins between those two. So this is an interesting question. Should we not just deal with the fact data will never be clean? So, yeah, quite fun, isn't it? Yeah. So, depending on the volume of your data and the many entry points that data can come through, it may be true that data is never 100% clean. But if everyone upholds good data quality processes, we may get it to, fingers crossed, 99%. As long as you have the processes in place, people are aligned, and the data is monitored daily, then this should allow you to be as clean as possible.
Yeah, I think you're right. Right. We don't want to take up, much more of your time. So we'll do one more question and I'll pick a really big one. How will AI improve my data? Do you want to take this one, Lisa?
Yeah. Giving me the hard question.
Yep.
Yeah, so AI can use machine learning and natural language processing techniques to detect and correct data errors, such as typos, duplicates, missing values, outliers, and inconsistencies. So, for example, AI can identify and standardize different formats of dates, names, addresses, and currencies across different data sources. Therefore, AI can improve data. However, and that's a big however, only if the data input is good.
Yeah, it may not be as straightforward as it seems. We'd like to, urge you guys to be cautious when you're using AI for data tasks, especially if you're using open source models and interfaces and or working with proprietary data. So, it comes with a warning from us, but it's probably going to be great.
Yeah, I should just wave my red flag here. So, as you can surely know, AI is a hot topic at the moment. So, I think personally it would be quite interesting to see what actually happens in the market with AI. So, I think those are all our questions. So, to summarise, basically, the key point that I would take away from today is to make sure that you monitor your database regularly. So then that way you can take action when needed. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed our session. This was our first session in our MOPS Unlocked series, so we'd like to thank you all for attending. We'll also have a recording made available after the session, so then you can share it with your colleagues and anyone listening to us today. Make sure you keep an eye out for our next session, which will be quick wins around email deliverability, which is an important topic for marketing operations as well.
Let's have a survey at the end of the webinar, as everyone does, asking you to rate the webinar, and there's a box there as well for you to put your, suggestions, topics, questions, general feedback in it. So please take 45 seconds to complete that and give us your comments. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.